Over the next year, as we move toward our nation's 250th birthday, we will spend a portion of the newscast each morning and night looking back at something that happened on this day in history. It's all part of our We the People initiative, helping us see some of the things that make Maine, Maine. Well, on this 4th of July, we're going to look back 10 years. It's the annual lobster races in Bar Harbor. Back then, they told us it was the only true lobster race in the world. Even a decade ago, the 4th of July in Bar Harbor drew people from all over the world. One woman came from Paris, France to watch those crustaceans go head to head. Until tomorrow with This Day in History, I'm Brian Sullivan. Today, let's head north. On August 17th, 1997, Phish played at the Loring Air Force Base in Limestone in front of more than 70,000 fans. The Great Went Tour attracted tens of thousands of people from across the country over its 2 days in Aroostook County. Because of all the visitors, it caused stores in the area to run out of all kinds of stuff and caused hours of standstill traffic. Phish would come back to Loring again in 1998 and for one final time in 2003. All these shows creating memories that some fans still cherish today. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. On this day in 2002, music filled the Bangor waterfront. August 23rd marked the start of the National Folk Festival. The three-day event drew thousands on a promise of bringing music from all over the world to the riverfront of the Penobscot. When the National began its three-year run in Bangor in 2002, there was skepticism that the small Maine community could succeed as the annual event's host. Bangor was one of the smallest communities to ever host the festival since its inception in 1934, but by the end of its residency, everybody was a believer. After 18 years of fulfilling its promise to bring the world to Bangor, the final American Folk Festival was held in 2019. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Today marks 24 years since the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks on America. Terrorist plot leader Mohammed Atta and a fellow hijacker arriving at the Portland Jetport for their flight to Boston. The hijackers would go on to pilot their Boston to LA flight into the World Trade Center, Tower 1. Nearly 3,000 people lost their lives that day, including 6 people from Maine. In 2008, 2 steel beams from the World Trade Center took a long trip to their new home in Brewer. Greeted by a hero's welcome, flanked by local public safety officials, these relics a rare gift from the New York Port Authority. You can see them on display in Brewer's Public Safety Building. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Today, we the people remember when Public Enemy #1 got caught and went down in the streets of Bangor. It's October 12, 1937. Robber Al Brady and his accomplice Clarence Lee Schaefer Jr. are killed in an FBI ambush outside Dakin's Sporting Goods store in downtown Bangor. The Al Brady gang, the target of a year-long manhunt, prone to boasting about its members' exploits, had been convicted or implicated in several robberies and slayings in their native Indiana. They visited Dakin's twice before to buy guns and ammunition for use in committing more robberies. Arriving in a black Buick sedan with Ohio license plates, they also inquired about the availability of Tommy guns. When the store manager said he wasn't allowed to stock those, the robbers asked if he could get some anyway and said they would return later. Manager tipped off the police, triggering the FBI ambush. As you see in this video through reenactments through the years, it is a moment that lives on still to this day. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. A big one today. We the people look back to October 19th, 1963. That's when John F. Kennedy came to Maine. Only 34 days before his assassination in Dallas, President Kennedy delivers a foreign policy address at the University of Maine in Orono. You can see this archival video marking that occasion. He remains the only sitting president to visit the Orono campus more than 60 years after his foreign policy address. In his speech, the president thanks the university for the honorary degree it's giving him, calls the American college and university system a national asset, and looks forward to a peaceful end to the Cold War.
The United States must continue to seek a relaxation of tension, but we have no cause to relax our vigilance.
He also reflects soberly on the outcome a year earlier of the Cuban Missile Crisis, in which the U.S. and the Soviet Union, mobilizing their forces and employing a high-stakes form of cat-and-mouse diplomacy, barely avoided a nuclear conflict. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Today we look back to a head-scratching mistake that back then got everybody talking. On October 20th, 1977, Erwin Kreutz, a German tourist, mistakenly believed he was in San Francisco after landing in Bangor on a World Airways flight. Despite being told to have a nice time in San Francisco by a flight attendant, Kreutz thought he had reached his destination and spent days wandering the city, believing it was part of the Bay Area, looking for things like the Golden Gate Bridge. Eventually, he met a restaurant owner in Old Town that spoke German and set him straight. The story drew national attention, making him a bit of a celebrity. In the years that followed, he returned to Maine, embraced. He did things like serving as a guest of honor at an Oktoberfest event, and he was there at the dedication of the Bangor Mall in 1978. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. November 28th, it's 1981. Longtime Somerset County Sheriff Deputy Bud Hensby and his wife Helen, a Madison Select woman, leave home in their pickup truck, headed to Farmington, where they plan to have dinner at a new restaurant. According to an account given by Bud later, as they passed through Starks on Route 43, they saw a big group of people trying to catch a dog that had gotten free. He stops and asks if they need help. One of the people tells him not to keep going because on the other side of the hill, a menacing, unidentified flying object. This video is not from that day, although we wish it was. The Hensbys head that way anyway. As they drive, they notice a far-off light sweeping from side to side, but it disappears, so they continue to Farmington and enjoy dinner. Hensby says later on the way back, a hovering light suddenly confronts them in Starks. It's so bright that he's nearly blinded and can't drive. The object changes position a few times, then hovers around 60 feet in the air directly in front of them in absolute silence. The Hensbys turn around and take a different route home. The next day, he called the Morning Sentinel and told them what happened, a story that would appear in the paper and spread across radio and TV news broadcasts and prompts a barrage of phone calls to the Hensbys, including from one researcher in Florida who said they're ready to come to Maine and hypnotize the witnesses. The Hensbys refused to take part in any additional interviews after that. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. On this day in 1941, we, the people of the United States, entered World War II. Each year, on this day, a day that will live in infamy, around the country, Americans pause to remember the attack on Pearl Harbor. This is our coverage from 2011, the 70-year anniversary of the attack. In Bangor, people gathered at the bridge over the Kunduskeg Stream, the annual event, which sees a wreath thrown into the water as a sign of remembrance. Veterans young and old attending, including Major General Bill Libby, whose father was a World War II veteran.
Gosh, that was the greatest generation this nation has given, and it's a generation that we're fast losing.
More than 2,000 Americans died and more than 100,000 were injured at Pearl Harbor. Bangor native Willard Carlton Orr was the only Maine resident killed in that attack. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. The year is 1998. We, the people of Maine, still under a sheet of ice. In response to the damage, Vice President Al Gore visiting the state. We were there too.
It was a meeting that got straight to the point. As soon as Vice President Al Gore took a seat in the hearing room, Maine's various emergency management officials offered briefings on storm damage.
The sooner Maine is back on its feet, the stronger our country is. It's just a basic philosophical principle. It's part of the glue that binds us together as a nation.
I'd like to request at this moment the declaration of a disaster area for the next level, which is individual federal aid for homeowners and individuals.
Approved.
From here, the Vice President headed to the Lewiston area to survey more of the storm damage, destruction that Gore compared to the effects of a neutron bomb.
Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. On this day in 2019, Skowhegan got a call about their calls. Perhaps there were some that doubted them, naysayers who thought it couldn't be done. But in the end, more than 1,000 people in Skowhegan banded together and answered the call to set a world record. Guinness World Records confirmed that previous June at the Skowhegan Moose Festival, a record was set for the most people moose calling simultaneously. 1,054 people in total released their inner moose that day, and we were there.
3, 2, 1.
There's this huge element of community pride because so many different people and organizations and businesses participated in the Moose Festival. So we're really all just very excited and proud to have this world record as a claim to fame.
Impressive, to say the least. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Let's take some time to look back at Maine's place in history, and there may be no date more important to the people of the state than on March 15th, 1820, the day Maine officially became the 23rd state in the Union. For decades, Maine had been part of Massachusetts. Its people governed from far away. But Mainers wanted their own voice, their own laws, their own future. After years of debate, Congress approved statehood as part of the Missouri Compromise. And on March 15th, Maine finally stood on its own. The moment that matters, it's when our coastal villages, logging towns, and farming communities became one state with a shared identity and a seat at the American table. Every vote we cast, every law passed in Augusta, every Mainer serving in Washington traces back to that day. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Throughout We the People, we're looking at stories that reveal something deeper about who we are, and a few are more uniquely Maine than the discovery of the North Pond Hermit. For decades, campers and cabin owners around North Pond near Rome reported strange break-ins, food missing, propane used, small items taken, and almost never a trace. Then on this day in 2013, game wardens and state police finally caught the man behind it, Christopher Knight, who had lived alone in the woods for roughly 27 years, surviving Maine winters by scavenging and avoiding all human contact. For many Mainers, the North Pond Hermit story was part mystery, part cautionary tale, and part reflection on isolation and mental health in rural places. It also reminded us that in a state with so much wilderness, it's still possible for someone to disappear, not far away, but right in our backyard. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Remember what it was like to be in the path of totality? On April 8th, 2024, the sun went away for a few minutes and we all watched in awe. Here's some of WABI's coverage from that day.
We are seconds away from totality in Jackman.
Wow.
There it goes.
There it is.
That is totality in Jackman.
Wow.
Completely dark. And then for those locations,
listen to the crowd cheer.
there's your diamond ring effect
wow.
right there. That's what we were talking about.
I just got chills.
That is incredible. So you can see around it the corona, the sun's corona, which is not visible with the naked eye.
Just a matter of seconds. You got to get it quick.
Yep. Then you've also got that reddish tint.
Yep.
That's your chromosphere. And then there are a few, you can see them on the top right corner and bottom left. Those are your solar filaments, your CMEs, your coronal mass ejections.
Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Part of this run of We the People are the Maine stories that traveled far beyond our borders. One of the biggest began with the publication of Carrie, the first novel by a then unknown writer from Maine named Stephen King. When Carrie hit the shelves in the 1970s, it didn't just launch a book, it launched a career that would make King one of the best-known authors in the world, and it put Maine on the literary map in a whole new way. For Mainers, Carrie matters because it showed you didn't have to come from New York or Hollywood to reach a global audience. A teacher and a writer from right here in our state could create a story so powerful it became a cultural phenomenon and inspired generations of readers, writers, and filmmakers. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Through the years, many Mainers have helped protect the nation's democracy. One of those came in 1974 during the Watergate hearings. A freshman Republican from Maine, William Cohen, served on the House Judiciary Committee, the panel deciding whether President Nixon should be impeached.
When will the vote be taken?
Well, according to the proposed time schedule, they propose to start the actual hearings around the first week in May. The estimate is it'll take at least 4 weeks of really hard work and day-to-day hearings.
Cohen didn't treat it as a party fight. He pushed for the release of the White House tapes, even as pressure mounted inside his own party. And when the evidence was clear, Cohen voted for impeachment, breaking with the Nixon administration, and in the process, drawing death threats for his stance. It reflects something many Mainers prize: independence, integrity, and the belief that no one is above the law. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Today we honor an event unique to Maine television. WABI is the only station in the country to air a live canoe and kayak race. I'm talking about the Kenduskeag. While it had been around 4 years previous, this day in 1997 was our first live broadcast.
Now we got a little bit of a collision coming here. This could be good, as this kayak and canoe make it through. No problem there. Obviously an experienced team in that red looks like a Discovery.
Some of them make
because
it
of
look
the
so
giant
easy, don't
amount
they?
of flotation.
Still impressive. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. On April 22nd, 1897, Louis Sockalexis, a member of the Penobscot Nation from Indian Island, made his Major League Baseball debut for the Cleveland Spiders. Sockalexis is widely recognized as the first Native American to play in the National League. In an era of open prejudice, he stepped onto a big league field and proved he belonged with talent that drew national attention and helped open doors, even as the road was never fair or easy. Sockalexis' debut is a point of pride for the Penobscot Nation and for the state as a whole. It reminds us that Maine isn't on the sidelines of American history. We've helped shape it. His legacy still resonates today in conversations about representation, respect, and opportunity in sports. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. As America approaches its 250th anniversary, we're remembering moments when Mainers made a difference far beyond our borders. One of the most extraordinary happened on April 26, 1983, when 10-year-old Samantha Smith of Manchester arrived in the Soviet Union. It was the height of the Cold War, a time of real fear about nuclear conflict. Samantha had written directly to Soviet leader Yuri Andropov, asking why the two countries couldn't be friends. Her letter made international headlines, and soon she was invited to visit. A child from a small state showed the world the power of plain-spoken courage. Samantha didn't have a title or a platform, just a question and the confidence to ask it. Her trip became a symbol of citizen diplomacy, reminding people on both sides that humanity can cut through politics. For Mainers, Samantha Smith remains a point of pride and a reminder that even the youngest voice from anywhere can be heard around the world. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. We the People is about more than fireworks and history books. It's about the choices communities make to protect one another. Here in Maine, that story includes a painful chapter, the 2003 poisonings tied to a church in New Sweden. Here's a look back at WABI's coverage of that happening.
While inside the kitchen, Daniel Bondison poured an undetermined amount of liquid arsenic into the percolator in the brewed coffee. Some of the people who drank the coffee became ill very quickly. 16 were poisoned, and all but one survived. Doctors couldn't save 78-year-old Walter Morrill.
It was his form of retaliation with the intent or the purpose to upset people's stomach, make them sick, but he claimed that he did not appreciate that what he was putting in there was arsenic, nor did he realize the consequences.
Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Today, we're bringing you a hometown moment that links Maine to a national story. One of them happened in May of 1953. That's when Walter Dixon, who you see here, one of the founding fathers here at WABI, our chief engineer and eventual general manager, met President Dwight D. Eisenhower and presented him with the Penobscot Pool salmon. It's a small gesture with a big meaning. For Maine, the salmon represents more than a fish. It's our rivers, our heritage, and the way the Penobscot has sustained communities for generations. Bringing that gift to the White House was a way of putting Maine's identity on the national stage, reminding the country that our natural resources and traditions also matter. It's also a reminder of WABI's long role in telling Maine's story. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Today, we remember a night when Maine became a part of the national soundtrack. May 24th, 1977, when Elvis Presley played his only concert in Maine, taking the stage at the Augusta Civic Center. A packed arena, screaming fans, flashbulbs, and that once-in-a-lifetime feeling that the biggest star in America was here. Not New York or Los Angeles, but in Augusta, Maine. For many, it wasn't just a concert, it was a story you kept forever. The ticket stub, the outfit you wore, the moment you heard that voice live. Bob Vachon spoke to the King that night.
Just the way he talked. How you doing? How else is how are you? Then he thanked us on the way over because we were holding the doors open for him. It was the best thrill of my life.
It validated something people here know. You don't have to be in a major city to be part of major culture. Maine shows up, and when a legend comes through, the state remembers and hopes they can get tickets. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Today, a moment when Maine found itself in the center of the world's attention. It happened on May 25th, 1965, when Muhammad Ali, then known as Cassius Clay, fought Sonny Liston in Lewiston at what was then the Central Maine Youth Center. It's now the Colisee. A small Maine city suddenly flooded with reporters, cameras, and fight fans, the kind of buzz you'd expect in Vegas or New York, not Lewiston. And then the fight ended almost as quickly as it began, Ali dropping Liston in the first round, creating one of boxing's most famous, debated moments and producing one of sports' most iconic photos. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. On the first day of June, 1950, as Cold War fears surged and accusations of communism dominated headlines, Maine Senator Margaret Chase Smith stepped onto the Senate floor and delivered her Declaration of Conscience. It came less than 4 months after Senator Joseph McCarthy's explosive Wheeling speech at a moment when many in Washington chose silence. Smith didn't name McCarthy, but she challenged the smear tactics and urged the Senate and her own Republican Party to rein in investigations like HUAC, that's the House Un-American Activities Committee, and return to basic Americanism. She laid out 4 rights: the right to criticize, to hold unpopular beliefs, to protest, and to think independently. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. Today, let's revisit a moment when national politics dropped into everyday Maine life. On June 5th, 2020, President Donald Trump visited Maine, meeting with fishermen in Bangor, then touring the Puritan Medical Products plant in Guilford. The country was deep in the COVID era, businesses disrupted, supply chains strained, and communities anxious about both health and jobs. The visit put a spotlight on two pillars of Maine's economy, our working waterfront and manufacturing. The Guilford stop mattered because it highlighted how a rural Maine plant can play a national role, producing medical supplies used far beyond our borders. And the conversation in Bangor with fishermen underscored the pressure many on the water felt, trying to keep traditions and livelihoods alive in a turbulent year. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. As the U.S. approaches 250 years, We the People is also about the morning America chose to gamble everything for freedom and the Mainers who went with it. On June 6, 1944, General Dwight D. Eisenhower gave the go-ahead for Operation Overlord, D-Day, the largest amphibious invasion in history. What it was like then, in the dark hours before sunrise, 18,000 parachutists were already dropping behind enemy lines. By daybreak, thousands of planes filled the sky, and at 6:30 a.m., Americans hit the surf at Utah and Omaha Beach under intense fire with no way back but forward. Maine was there. Nearly 80,000 Mainers served in World War II, and men from this state were among the forces involved in the Normandy invasion, some never coming home. We can't put an exact number on how many Mainers landed on D-Day or died that day without unit-by-unit records, but the impact is etched into Maine families and hometown memorials across the state. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. We the People is also about the places built to protect this country and the stories they still tell. Here in Maine, Fort Knox in Prospect is one of the best reminders. As you watch this 100-year-old video, you can see what it meant back then. Picture it. A massive granite fort rising above the Penobscot River, built in the 1800s to defend Maine's coastline and waterways after earlier conflicts showed how vulnerable ports and ship routes could be. The goal was simple: deter attack and protect the people and commerce moving through the region. Even though Fort Knox never saw the kind of battle it was designed for, it still served a purpose. It represented readiness, engineering, and the strategic importance of Maine in national defense. It still matters today because it's become a living classroom, drawing visitors who walk its dark corridors, climb its towers, and look out over the river the way soldiers once did. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan. As we inch closer and closer to turning 250, it's important to include the earliest sparks of independence. And one of Maine's biggest came on June 11th, 1775, at the Battle of Machias. The revolution had barely begun, and this was a small coastal community facing a powerful empire. When a British ship arrived to enforce control and secure supplies, local residents didn't back down. They fought with what they had, using the harbor, their boats, and sheer determination, and captured the British vessel. It became one of the first naval engagements of the American Revolution, and it sent a message that resistance wasn't limited to the big cities. Machias proved people were willing to take risks for self-government, even when the odds were against them. Still matters today because it's part of Maine's identity: independent, resourceful, and unafraid to stand up for what we believe. A small town made a big statement, and it still echoes. Until tomorrow, I'm Brian Sullivan.